Hey everyone, it's Megan and welcome back to my channel. So I decided to continue with the series that I had started a couple months ago where it was Supernatural on different shows. So the one that I first started with was Supernatural on Charmed. And today we are doing Supernatural on ER. ER happens to be one of my favorite shows. I grew up watching it and I still love it to this day, and I still watch it. I actually started a rewatch like a long time ago, and I never actually finished it, but I keep meaning to go back to it. But yeah, so ER is just like one of my favorite shows. There is just so much drama and so much suspense and stuff. So it just keeps me entertained. And I happen to notice that there was a lot of different supernatural actors that had guest starred on the show. So here we are going to be talking about some of them. So the first one is Jared Padalecki, who we all know plays Sam Winchester. So his character was named Paul Harris. He was a young kid at the time, both Jared and the character. So him and his father got into a car crash, and Jared's character actually ended up in a coma for a little bit, but he made it out okay. And the two of them, the one thing that I loved about the episode is like the two of them just refused to refused to focus on their own health. They were more worried about, the father or the son. The father was worried about the son, and the son was worried about the father. And I really like that aspect of it. So the episode was in season 7. It was episode 10. And so next actor is Misha Collins. So this one I knew, but I didn't know at the same time. Like, I remembered kind of the character, but I was just like, oh yeah, that's right, it was Misha Collins. So he played the character of Brett in 2 different episodes in season 11. It was episode 15 and 16. He played Ray's bandmate, who actually had a crush on Neela. The two ended up kind of like going on this date and almost hooking up, but not yet. She realized that she couldn't go through with it, but it was just kind of like fun to see, because at the start you're like, okay, he's just this random guy just kind of sitting there in their living room just eating cereal, and then all of a sudden he's like, ooh, I like Neela, let me go out with Neela. It was also fun to see him play that type of character too, because I had seen him from Charmed, and then to not Supernatural, from ER, and then Supernatural. So just completely different characters, and it's just like fun to see him kind of growing. So the next actor is Jeffrey D. Morgan, who plays John Winchester, Sam and Dean's father. He played firefighter Larkin in season 7, episode 15. So what his episode was he was helping this train collision, or a car that had hit a train. I wrote it down and I can't remember which one's which, but all of a sudden the train fell on him and he ended up getting stuck. And they couldn't get the train off him, so they ended up having to amputate his legs to save him. That was a scary episode, because also at the same time, it's like Corday thought she was going into labor, or she did go into labor as she was trying to amputate his legs. So then she had to get rushed back to the hospital, and then Carter, who was there, had to do the amputation, and he's no longer a surgeon, he's just an ER doctor, so he had to be walked through it. So much suspense, but Jeffrey played such a good character, and you could just see the emotion in the turmoil in his character, because, you know, he's losing his legs and he can't be a firefighter anymore. So it's like, but it was a good episode. All these episodes were really good. So the next actor is Mark Pellegrino. This one, I went back and I rewatched it. And it's like when he first showed up on screen, I was like, that can't be him. No, is that him? It's like I didn't recognize him at all. But it was fun to watch. So he was in episode 14 of season 2. And he came in sick. And I can't remember what for, but I do remember that also his girlfriend had AIDS and hadn't told him. So now the doctors are trying to convince her to tell him because he has a right to know, but she doesn't want to tell him yet. And I believe in the end the doctors did tell him. And, you know, that caused all sort of friction. But like I said, I didn't recognize him at all. It was it was really fun to be like, that's him. Yeah, that's him. Because it's like he looked completely different. Next is Robert Speight Jr. And he actually, I feel like his is like a blink and you miss his cameo on the show because he's like a one-day intern and then gone. But he was in season 2, episode 2, and like I said, he was a med student. So he was a med student, and he was working under Dr. Green. And there's not much more that I know about it, because when I tried to look for him more in the episode, I didn't really see him, with the exception of like a couple of scenes, but it's really kind of cute to see how young he looked. I actually posted a photo on Twitter, and it was so fun to see how young he looked. Alright, so the next one is Keith Sarabek. I don't think I'm pronouncing that correctly, so I apologize if I pronounce any of these names incorrectly. I'm terrible with pronunciations. I'm trying my best. I tried to write it down so that way I could see it. He plays Donatello on Supernatural, and on ER he plays the character Mr. DeLuca, and it's in season 9, episode 6. And he is actually playing the father of a dying patient. So she comes in, and she's, you know, they can clearly see that she's dying, and that, you know, she tells them she has a DNR. They call her father, and he wants them to do something, but unfortunately their hands are tied and they can't do anything. So, but it's fun to see him in so many different shows. Like the way he looks now as Donatello, if I didn't recognize the name, I probably would have never put him together as Holt on Angel. So that's interesting. That is another one that I will be doing, but later. And I forgot to tell you the names of Mark Pellegrino's character and Richard Speight Jr.'s. So Mark Pellegrino's character was named Nathan Conley, and then Richard Speight Jr.'s character was Borinsky? I think that's how you pronounce it. Okay, so moving on to Chad Lindberg. He played Jade Hudson in 2 episodes. He was in, and they were both in season 3. He was in episode 14 and 16. He played a patient with CF. I know what it stands for, but for my brain is not working correctly, and I don't want to mispronounce it. It's cystic fibrosis. Yeah, like I said, I'm butchering that. I know that. But yeah, so he came in and, you know, he was trying, he came in days before his 18th birthday, and he was trying to get married to his girlfriend, I believe, if I remember this correctly. Yeah, he's trying to get married to his girlfriend, and he knew he was dying, and there was no way to, you know, help him, so he wanted a DNR, but of course he's under 18, so now they call his mother, and his mother wants them to tube him. The girlfriend agrees at the time because she didn't want to see him die, and of course Ross, who's the doctor at the time, doesn't want to do it, but unfortunately has to do it. And then the next episode, his last episode, he ends up getting, you know, the tube taken out and released from the hospital because he's 18, so he can do what he wants. You know, he doesn't have to worry about his mother making his choices for him. And I actually remember him as a character. I just don't remember it being Chad, but I remember the character so much. Next one is Robert Wisdom, who played Uriel on Supernatural. He plays Dr. Hammond in season 7, episode 2. He was involved in Mark Green's brain surgery operation, so he's not seen very much, but he's there when, like, Mark starts to have a seizure, and he's trying to get Mark to recite words and say things, so that way, you know, they know what's happening as they're doing the surgery. Next up is Frederick Leahy. Not, like I said, I'm pretty sure I said that wrong. So, as we all know, he played Azazel on Supernatural, and on ER he played Bum's friend. That is actually what he is credited as in the episode, is as Bum's friend. So he was in season 3, episode 12, and what had happened was he and another actor who were playing homeless men, the other character ends up getting crushed. And so he ends up rushing his friend to the hospital to try and get him help as fast as possible, but unfortunately it's just too late and they can't save him, which is very sad, but they did their best and they tried. So next actor, Shoshannah Stern. Hoping I'm pronouncing her name correctly, because I adore her on Supernatural. She plays Elaine, and on ER she played a character named Rosemary. So she was on season 9, episode 11, and how her character came in was they had to tie her down because they thought she was an unruly patient, but in reality she's deaf and was trying to sign to them, but they didn't realize it at the time, so they thought she was, you know, she needed to be restrained down, which should not be a practice. Okay? Not at all. So she, as I said, she was playing an unruly patient, but, you know, in fact wasn't. And then she ended up, I think, having like a UTI. And then she ends up bonding with Carrie, who speaks to her with sign language because Carrie has, learn sign language, and she can speak to other people who, are deaf or use sign language. So it was a really sweet moment, and I really liked the episode. It's also very sad for Carrie as well, because she ends up having a miscarriage in that episode, and that's where they really connect, Rosemary and Carrie. So it's a very, very well done episode. So next actor is Travis Wester, and he plays Eric. And he was in season 10, episode 7. And this one, I feel like there's another episode that goes along with this. He might not be in it, but the other people who were in the scene with him might be, because I vaguely remember this. So him, his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's kids were in a car crash. And so he's this typical, guy who just wants to date the girl and doesn't really care about the kids and just can't stand the kids. Which, not all guys are like that, but this one was. So after everything all checks out, they get released, and then he ends up coming back with the baby who was no longer responsive. And then social services gets involved, ends up arresting him because the doctors believe that he did something to the baby because of how he was acting when they first got into the crash. And if I remember correctly, he ends up, I feel like he was exonerated, or it was proved that he didn't do anything and that it was a medical mistake, but I could be wrong. I'd have to look that up. I'll look it up and put it down here to let you know. So the next episode, so the next actor is Sterling K. Brown, who played Gordon on Supernatural. He plays Bob Harris in season 10, episode 13. He is actually public management, talking about patient care to Pratt because of what happened with Pratt and a former patient. The patient had, I forget what the medical term is, but basically his bones were like glass. So when Pratt went to tube this patient, he ends up moving his head too far back, and it snaps his neck and paralyzes him from the neck down. So now, there's all these legal things getting in the way, and Sterling K. Brown's character, Bob Harris, is involved in all that. So, next actor is Jake Abel, which I almost missed his episode. It wasn't on the list originally, but I saw it and I was like, oh my god, that's Jake! That's Adam! How did I miss this? So it's episode 15. It's season 15, episode 14. Yes. Okay. So so the episode that he is in is season 15, episode 14. He plays a character named Dylan, and basically what it is his mom comes in and she's, having a hard time breathing, and every doctor before this told his mother she had cancer and she only had 6 months to live, and they had come down for his audition into Juilliard. But, they weren't sure if the mother was going to live, and he didn't want to leave her, but they told her to. And then it turns out that this old doctor who used to work at County, who, ended, I think, with dementia or, Alzheimer's, I can't remember which one, but he ends up seeing something on her behind her ear, which ends up turning out to be TB, so it's actually something that's treatable instead of being cancer. So when Dylan comes back to see his mother after his audition, they tell him the good news that his mother's going to live, and she doesn't, in fact, have cancer. And that was such a great episode, especially since you got to see kind of an old-timey ER at that time. So, and you got to learn a little bit more, and you got to see William H. Macy again. So that was a fun episode. So season 15 was really great because of all the cameos from the past stars of the show. And the last actor is Gil McKinney, who played Henry Winchester. Sorry, Henry Winchester, who is John Winchester's father. And in the show, he was, throughout season 14 and 15, sporadically, he was a recurring character. And he played Dr. Paul Grady, who was a new intern for those 2 seasons. And I also think he had a little crush on Abby at one point, but that never happened. But, so yeah. So you can see him throughout season 14 and 15. I'd tell you the episodes, but there's quite a few, so I'm just going to leave it at seasons 14 and 15. Okay, so while editing this video, I realized I had forgotten someone. And that someone was Atlas Hadj. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I apologize. But he was... Who did he play? Sorry. Yeah, I was right. He plays Jake Talley. So he was the one that ended up killing Sam at the end of season 2. And in ER, he actually played 2 characters. He played a young man and the character of Brad Edlow. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So, the character of Brad is from season 5, episode 6. He plays this young cancer patient that ends up with a fever. And I can't remember much about the episode. It is escaping me right now. But the other character that he plays is a young man, is from season 10, episode 2. And I believe he works, he's either a soldier or a patient in the Congo while Luca is there, or while Carter is looking for Luca. I never really could spot him, but again, he wasn't this real character, so he might have been like a background character. But I realized as I was editing that I had forgotten him on the list, so I just wanted to make sure that I got him on the list. And now to the outro. And so that is everyone that was from, or almost everyone from Supernatural that was on ER. There might be more. I might have missed some, but these are the ones that I was able to find. There are also kind of more well-known names that were on Supernatural. They weren't just, they weren't all just like one and done. But it's just kind of, it's been kind of fun looking at this and being like, okay, so who was in this show before and who was in that show? I've done it for a couple shows. Like I said, I did it for Charmed first. Now I'm doing it for ER. I'll also be doing it for Buffy because there was a big, crossover between Buffy actors being on Supernatural and Supernatural actors being on Buffy. So that one will come next year, because I have a lot of different things planned for this year before. And so if you know of any actors from Supernatural that were on ER that I missed, please be sure to comment down below. I would love to hear some of the other actors. Like I said, I'm sure I've missed a few. And, you know, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, bye guys.